It has been 14 long months since the pandemic first took hold. We've been on quarantines and lockdowns, and our world has been turned upside down. We have lost all sense of normalcy, and this experience and this process has been pretty traumatic for our world and our systems, and we have just wanted to get back to normal. How many times in the last 14 months have you found yourself saying, I just want things to go back to normal? Well, now with the vaccine rollout and distribution, we're starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. We're starting to see what life could look like post COVID. And now more and more people are starting to get anxious about returning to normal. Suddenly, returning to normal, going back to the way things were, isn't sounding so great to all of us. If you think this idea seems totally crazy, that we should all want to go back to normal, or what's wrong with me that I don't want to go back to normal, stay tuned because today I'm going to talk about this, what the heck it means, and why it's not really that strange. And if you're someone that doesn't quite want to go back to the way things were, I'm going to talk with you about a tangible, real, and very helpful strategy to help you figure out life going forward. Stick around. Hey y'all, welcome back. I am Dr. Allison. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've pretty much made it my life mission to really simplify psychology. So, to break down the science to help you live a healthier and more meaningful life. Now, I want to be clear as we start this video. No one is saying, well, at least I'm not, that we want this global pandemic to continue. COVID, at least at the time of this video, has claimed the lives of more than 3 million people worldwide. It has been devastating and horrific. So if you're listening to this video about not being sure about going back to normal, please know this isn't some la la land. COVID has helped me realize my priorities, and so it's actually been a good thing. That positivity, that way of thinking is toxic and privileged, and that ain't it. So I want us to really be clear when we talk about maybe not going back to normal. We're talking about something much more nuanced and subtle. More and more, as things reopen and restrictions begin to lift and people are getting vaccinated, I'm starting to hear people say that they're not so sure that they want things to go back to normal. That there have been some things or themes or habits that they've developed in the last 14 months that they've actually kind of enjoyed or appreciated. I've heard people appreciate not having jam-packed weekends. I've heard people appreciate being able to say no to obligations and invitations that they didn't really want to go to. I've heard people appreciate Zoom healthcare appointments, cooking more, or getting outside in nature more often. I've heard people appreciate not having ridiculously long commutes, not having to spend money doing things that they don't really want to do, or maintaining casual relationships and friendships that aren't really that meaningful. I want you to think for a moment. What over the last 14 months has surprised you, or have you enjoyed or grown to appreciate more than you thought, right? There is probably something over the last 14 months that you have grown to enjoy, appreciate, or realize about yourself, your schedule, or your life. Now, what if I tell you that when COVID is over, you're gonna have to give that up? Gonna have to go back to doing things the way you did before. If you noticed a pit in your stomach, or you noticed a sense of dread or an internal ugh, then you are one of these people that maybe doesn't want to quite go back to normal the way it was before. And I'm here to tell you that's not crazy, that's not weird, that makes sense. Going back to normal does not mean that you have to do things the way you did before. Let me say that again. Going back to normal does not mean that you have to do things the way you did them before. If you were someone with a jam-packed social calendar pre-COVID and you've enjoyed more free time, you've enjoyed saying no to obligations and invitations, guess what? You don't have to go back to a jam-packed calendar. You can set boundaries. You can schedule more free time. You can say no to invitations even when there's not a pandemic to serve as your excuse. If you've traditionally had a hard time setting boundaries and you haven't had to see certain friends, or you haven't had to go to work functions you don't like, or you haven't had to spend as much time with your difficult mother-in-law, and you're thinking, I don't want to go back to feeling obligated all the time. Guess what? You don't have to. Listen to the way that you have felt over the last 14 months. Listen to the way it has felt to have limits and boundaries. And remember, you can take that with you going forward, even when COVID is over. If you used to have a horrific or long commute to work, and you have seriously noticed a change in the quality of your life without that commute, pay attention to that. Notice that. And think about how can you carry that with you going forward. Yeah, it might take some creativity. You might have to pitch working from home more often to your boss. You might have to rethink your job or where you live. But if you have appreciated not having that commute in the last 14 months, you don't just have to go back to slogging on the train or sitting in traffic. You can find a way to do things differently moving forward. When psychologists work with survivors of trauma, we don't tell them, and the goal of therapy isn't just go back to who you were before, go back to how you were before. That is nearly impossible. What we help survivors of trauma to do is to take this event, this experience it, process it, find a way to integrate it into their life in a way that is less painful, more meaningful, and to move forward finding a new normal. Trauma changes you. COVID has changed us. So the idea of going back to normal and the way things were and how you were doing things February 2020, that's not healthy. And that's not our goal. Now, if there are parts that you can't wait to get back to, that you are so excited to resume and pick up again, do those. Celebrate those. I'm not saying normal has to be completely brand new or that you've got to do what you did for the last 14 months moving forward. But if there is something about going back to normal that you are not excited about, you don't want to do, or you're finding yourself feeling a sense of dread about, let this be your reminder that you don't have to do things the way you did before. You can pay attention to what you've appreciated, enjoyed, or liked about this time, and you can choose to take that with you moving forward. So whatever it is that you've enjoyed, whether it's more movie nights with your family, whether it's cooking at home more, whether it's having, one weekend night where you do not get out of your sweatpants, if you've liked saying no to obligated travel that you don't feel like you can afford, if you have, taken a step back from your job and realized you want to pursue something else, whatever it is that you've appreciated, enjoyed, I want you to listen to that, right? Listen here in our gut. Pay attention to what that feels like. And remember, you are the author of your own life. So instead of thinking about going back to normal, I want us to think about creating a new normal moving forward. Instead of going back to normal, think about the life you want to create moving forward. And if you're saying, Dr. Allison, that kind of sounds like the same thing, you're just getting caught up in language. Language matters. If you watch my channel, you know that. The way we talk to ourselves, the way we frame our language and how we think about things, it shapes our reality. So going back to normal, do away with that phrase, do away with that idea, and think about, what do you want your future normal to look like? What have you learned from this time? And how can you get creative? How can you set boundaries? How can you set limits? How can you be intentional to make that new normal for yourself? I'm not gonna lie, there is so much that I cannot wait to resume and get back to and do again when life changes and COVID shifts. There's like 50 things I'm so excited to resume, but there are some things that I'm not gonna go back to. And I want you to give yourself permission to do that same thing. So if there is something that you have enjoyed, taken away, learned, or appreciated in the last 14 months, and you want to find a way to take that with you into your new normal, leave a comment below. I'm so excited and interested to hear what people have to say, and also to hear how you're gonna get creative in making that happen. You have the ability to set, create, make your path moving forward. You do not have to go back to the way things were. You get to be the author of your new normal. As always, thank you so much for watching and being here and being committed to your mental and emotional health. It's worth it and it matters, y'all. If you want more good stuff like this and you want more simplified psychology, check out my website, drallisonanswers.com. And of course, if you don't already, subscribe here on YouTube so you'll be the first to know about brand new videos. As always, go out and make your own path, create your new normal. You can do it. Bye-bye.